Okay, time for some honesty, folks. Right, come on, fess up. Yeah, you in the back, I'm talking to you. How's your downloads folder looking? Don't feel bad. Mine's like the Bermuda Triangle, as in slightly pointy, a little bit bigger than it probably should be. Files go in, probably don't come back out again. And that's really what this episode is about. Hello, everybody. We are talking about messy data versus tidy data and why actually being organized is the difference between calm and chaos. And that applies as whether you're trying to run a business or if you're actually just trying to find that PDF you downloaded 3 months ago with the recipe for that cake that you really like the look of. Before we dive in, though, just a quick sort of shout out, a little bit of a plug. If you want some extra hints, tips, quick wins, especially around spreadsheets at the moment, I'm building a bit of a shorts library over on Facebook and Instagram. Just search Data with Duke and you will find me there. I'm about 4 episodes in at the moment. I'm keeping them nice and short. I'll probably have to do a longer one at some point. But they're there, they're reels, you know how it works. You can look at them on your phone, so on and so forth. But have a look, it would be great to see you there. And then, of course, there's my website, datawithduke.com. So you'll find all of these podcasts through there as well, including show notes and a transcript of the podcasts themselves. And when we get to it and we start dishing out some files and some information and some things for you to have a play about with, that's where you will find it all. So give us a bookmark. Also on the website, you will also see some blogs where I just have a bit of a random sort of text kind of rant every now and then about usually something topical, but usually linked to data as well. So but that's Facebook and Instagram, Data with Duke, or my website, datawithduke.com. That's enough of the plug. Let's tidy up some data. So let's talk about messy data. It doesn't start in the office. I mentioned, okay, so let me rewind a little bit because I mentioned at the end of the last episode to say that why tidy data is important, why we actually consider what tidy data looks like for us. And I explained that the reason why it's important and what I hope we're going to be able to get to is because businesses, organizations in this sort of day and age where businesses, even small businesses, are becoming more and more data literate. These businesses are paying people a lot of money to organize their data. So that's really why we're talking about this, because the overall goal of this is for us to be able to help you with stuff that you might find useful at home. But for some of you listening to this might be thinking about a career in data or a career where data literacy or data skills might sort of be important, and that's pretty much why I'm doing what I'm doing. So let's talk about messy data. It doesn't start in the office, it does start at home as well. So let's just give you some examples. Think about your phone photos. The photos on your phone. There are thousands of them. Now, folks, I don't know what the average age of you guys is out there, but I remember that when you had a photo on your phone, but your phone would fill up with photos and you had to delete them if you wanted to take any more photos. And then you could add a different size memory cards in. And I remember having my first 32 gigabyte memory card in a phone, and thinking that, I was never going to fill this. And right now, on my phone today, I've actually got probably 5 times that amount of photos sitting in the cloud. But all of them are obviously connected to your phone. You'd have a look at your photo. If you're anything like me, there will be hundreds of, potentially thousands of photos that you have access to. It could be random screenshots. There could be like duplicated photos and 400 slightly blurry photos of the same dog. That's messy data. That's data that actually doesn't really do anything much, at least anyway. Imagine this for a second. If you wanted to talk about this, like from a physical point of view, have you got a drawer somewhere? Have you got a junk drawer somewhere in your house? I mean, I've got 3 of them, but a kitchen drawer maybe that's got like takeaway menus and old loyalty cards. Data that's useful in theory, but actually totally unmanageable in practice. if I take that same example and I relate it to what businesses actually have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, almost every business, it's the same problem, just much bigger. Instead of messy photo folders where the kid had got hold of it and taken 1,000,001 selfies, don't lie, I know you've got it. What businesses have instead is messy spreadsheets. And instead of takeaway menu stuffed in a drawer, they've got 10 different versions of a table called customer or customer one or customer two, or even spreadsheet files that just say customer list or the buffet list for the Christmas party in 2027 or 2007, something like that. I don't know. All of these businesses deal with this sort of issue. Messy data. Why businesses are interested in this is because messy data costs time, it costs money, and sometimes, an episode for a later time, it can cost reputation. Because if a business cannot trust the information, whether it's which takeaway is open or which customer is still active, these businesses are actually just working blind. And this is a risk and this is a danger for an organization. Now, I said episode for a later time, but just as a bit of a sneak preview, is that there are plenty of laws and legislation and regulations that are in place that are supposed to stop businesses from having issues with their data. That means it's too messy and accidents happen. And if they don't clean up their data, if they don't operate their data in a particular way, they can be fined a huge amount of money, massive amount of money. I'll come back to some examples another time. I'm not going to talk about them today because I think it's once we get into it, it's going to fill a whole episode. But yeah, if you're curious, start looking up Data Protection Act fines in the UK or GDPR fines in the European Union. And you'll probably have your eyes open. There's some pretty massive ones there, and some of them have been caused by simply having messy data. So, messy data, we don't want it. We don't like it. We don't want it at home, but we know that we're going to clean out that kitchen drawer one day, and we're not even sure whether or not that pizza place is still open or whether or not it got shut down after you sent in that really angry email from the diarrhea that you had after a dodgy pizza. Anyway, let's talk about it the other side, the flip side of the coin. Tidy data. What's tidy data? Tidy data is about making things easy to find and easy to understand and also easy to use. Now, those three things are actually really important to sort of differentiate between easy to find, so accessibility, easy to understand, and also easy to use. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, if it's easy to understand, surely it will be easy to use. Well, that's not necessarily the case, because what we need to be thinking about as people who work for businesses or even the business leaders who are trying to clean up their data is that easy to use doesn't necessarily mean easy to use for you. It might be easy to use for anybody else or anything else, whether it's a person or an application, to interact with and use that data. So you might be able to look at your database or your spreadsheet collection or your proverbial kitchen drawer full of takeaway menus and understand exactly what it is that's going on, or at least have a decent idea about what's going on. But the usual reason why that would happen would be if you were the one that stuffed the takeaway menus in the kitchen drawer in the first place. Somebody else who's new to your business, somebody who wasn't there when that pizza place was shut down, if you're sticking with my metaphor, wouldn't be able to necessarily understand it, and they certainly are not going to be able to use it. So even though they can be quite linked, understanding and usefulness, but we're going to keep them separate for the purposes of this little sort of podcast and this sort of course. We'll be coming back onto that topic quite a few times about the difference between understanding your data and using your data. So at home, that's going to be things like your photos on your phone. You actually organize them into folders. You know, you might have one for each year. You might have one for holidays or trips that you've taken, or one for the boys' night out, or one just for the blurry photos of your dog that you actually don't want to get rid of. Or it could actually just be naming your files properly. And when I say properly, I mean in such a way that is so descriptive that you could know just by looking at the file, like 5 years later, you know what the file itself is, so that you don't end up with business plan final part two XLSX or something like that. So in a business, how that can come about is about using things like consistent formats, like dates written in the same way, names spelt consistently, maybe no rogue blank cells or things like that. Coming back to what I was talking about earlier about the little shorts that I'm doing on Instagram, you'll see that I talk about dates in the first video just a little bit. Now, I imagine most of my audience is going to be based in the UK or Europe, and we do dates in day, month, year. That's the way that everybody understands it. But America, which is obviously USA, is obviously quite a massive thing, and many organizations do business with the USA because, let's face it, the USA is huge. So we can't ignore the fact that they will often do their dates in month, day, year. And I'm not here to argue as to which one is right or which one makes more common sense. The fact is that we have an inconsistency. If you are working with, or if you have contacts with, or if you are sharing data with somebody on the other side of the pond, or an organization on the other side of the pond, or even if you are using a system or a framework that has been developed in the United States, there is that risk for that inconsistency with dates. So I talk about dates quite a lot because it's just a perfect example, really, about why inconsistency and how inconsistency can creep in so easily into your data at home, but also quite commonly data within businesses as well. What else did I say? Name spelt consistently. This is a classic one where people will sign up for an organization. A customer will sign up for an organization with maybe their full name, their Sunday name, their government name, as some people say. So it could be like Timothy, but then when they actually fill in their profile a little bit later, they've actually only put Tim. The system gets confused to say, wait a minute, we've got a Tim and we've got a Timothy. We're having a problem with consistency in names there. Now, if your business's database has been set up properly, that shouldn't be a problem. But you'll be surprised how often I speak to people where they do actually have that same problem. Where actually having a full name, a Sunday name, and a shortened version of the name on a different system, that inconsistency is causing problems. So some people talk about housekeeping. Some people talk about housekeeping within your data within an organization. Chores in a house. You could be cleaning out that kitchen drawer and throwing away all of those menus that you always said you were going to use one day and then ended up never doing so as you're scrolling on your phone for the next Deliveroo app or whatever it is that you're using. So housekeeping in the house is quite similar to what the businesses do. So they spend some time purging data and figuring out if the data hasn't been accessed or used within a certain amount of time. They might just delete it, just get rid of it, or potentially take it through some sort of archiving process, potentially. But for businesses, it often goes a step further as well, a little bit further than just that sort of housekeeping. Clean data, organized, clean, structured, understandable, useful data is the foundation for pretty much everything else that a business needs to do. But even your small businesses are still, nowadays, as I said, they're getting more and more interested in data literacy, which includes analytics. How do I measure my performance? How do I look at the trends? How do I look at how the Christmas period affects my sales? How do I look at the school holidays? That's all analytics. Analytics are only useful if your data is clean in the first place. One of the things that I'll be talking about later on the website and on podcasts and on my Facebook page is machine learning. Machine learning, which is actually just a branch of AI. AI we'll be talking about again another time, but machine learning has been around for decades. Machine learning is something that more and more businesses are actually starting to adopt now. Sort of like a deep, a much deeper, more valuable type of statistical analysis. So machine learning is impossible without clean data. And then dashboards, you've got tool systems like Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets, and then the more dedicated tools like Tableau, Power BI, Alteryx, ClickSense. But all of these tools have one thing in common, is that they create dashboards for stakeholders. You stick the data in, you put a couple of formula in, and then you get some wonderfully beautiful visualizations tracking your sales or your expenditure or the amount of time that you're looking at blurry dog photos on your phone. None of that would work if the underlying data is a mess. There is a phrase that I need you to remember, and it is a common phrase in any data industry, and that is garbage in, garbage out. It does not matter how awesome your machine learning script is. It does not matter how shiny and how beautiful your dashboard is. If your data is not clean going in, then it will not be clean coming out of it at the end of the thing. But here's the thing, and I've been talking at you for a little bit. Tidy, it doesn't actually have to be boring. You can think about it like clearing your desk. The moment it's done, your brain feels lighter. You can focus a little bit more about what's going on. And believe it or not, the same thing happens when you clean up a spreadsheet. Suddenly it can feel like the answers are jumping out at you, and you actually spend less time swearing at your laptop because it's actually all making sense. So what I want you to think about over the next couple of weeks or so is about clean data. And your challenge this week, if you like, is to tidy up one small data set in your life. It could just be something as simple as your receipts pile that you've got in that drawer or in your wallet, or it could be your downloads folder that you've got on your computer, or perhaps even you may have even been tracking your financials, your incomes, your expenditures on a spreadsheet by yourself, and it's become a little bit messy. It's become a little bit all over the place. Just spend a few minutes just tidying it up. Just think about it. Just pick something, clean it up, and see how much faster you find things. And then let me know how you found it. Do a before and after screenshots if you like, or maybe just tell me the funniest file name that you've just come across. How many finals have you ever come across in work? I will always feature the best stories in a future episode as they come through. So that's pretty much us for today, thinking about tidy data and messy data. Tidy data and messy data in businesses is effectively just the same thing that you have got going on at home, or even your own personal devices, just on a much, much bigger scale. So have a think about it. See if you can find a data set and how you can go around tidying up. Let me know how you've done it. And don't forget, if you actually want some quick tips on spreadsheets or maybe some data hacks, don't forget to look up my website. That web address again is datawithduke.com. Plus, you'll also find Data with Duke on Facebook and Instagram. But I'm trying to upload at least one shorts video every week. But there's going to be a couple of different series about how you can organize and use different functions and formula within spreadsheets. I'm actually using, seeing as I'm here and I'm talking about it, I'm actually using Google Sheets for at the moment because it's free. You don't have to use, you don't need anything other than a Google account. Microsoft Excel. Excel is one of the most powerful, one of the most ubiquitous data analysis tools out there. Certainly nothing wrong with it. You can use a limited version of Microsoft Excel for free online with a Microsoft account. But if you want the full whack, you have to pay for it. You either pay for a license or you download it for a particular version or that sort of thing. Google Sheets, providing you have a Google account, is completely free, and it has a growing number of features and functions in there. So that's why I'm using it. Nothing wrong with Excel. Love Excel. If you use Excel, do you know what? Don't say anything different. But I'm trying to make this as accessible and as easy for everybody. I imagine that there's probably some people out there saying, I wish I knew how to use Excel, or I wish I knew how to use spreadsheets, and I can chuck this skill on my CV and it might help me get a job or something like that. That's exactly what it's there for, folks. So looking forward to seeing you there. And if you've got any questions about anything, you can get in touch with me either through comments on the various platforms in which I'm uploading my podcast. or again on my website datawithduke.com. There is a form there that you can fill in, and it will ping an email straight to me. So that's that. Episode 3, folks. Tidy data, tidy mind. Go and clean up that downloads folder. This has been Duke, signing off.